Evening, one and all. Welcome to another Traffic Talk match preview. Ahmed Nuz back again after being away for a couple of days, handing the reins to, well, that's who I'm pointing at, Mr. Alexi. He did a great job. I'm happy to be able to work with such great people. And he's not the only one who's with us today. Down there is Robbie, the man who runs the whole thing. We're going to talk a lot about United striker problems, West Ham in general, their great form and the possibility they could be in the Champions League next season. Some people's nightmares possibly coming true in that case. We'll also cover how Jesse Lingard is doing on loan and whether he's going to be at United next season, and also give our thoughts on who will play tomorrow with all those problems. And as always, it's great to have you all with us. If you are watching on the Twitter, hit the follow button and also like and share this around. If you're on YouTube, please like and subscribe. We're almost at 200 subscribers. Really got something big coming up for you when we do get to 200. No spoilers from us right now, but you will find out sooner rather than later. But as always, to the lads, first and foremost, lovely to have you on this evening, and we've got quite a few things to talk about. First and foremost, how are you feeling from Thursday night? Because I felt quite awful after the last minute on Thursday.
Yeah, it was a rough one to take, wasn't it, really? I think it was just the brutality of it. The brutality of a last-minute goal is always hard to take. It was hard to take because we conceded from a set piece again. But I look back on it now and I think it's not completely the end of the world because ultimately we did draw. And I just think sometimes, like that game, for example, it was a game of fine margins, I thought, because we very easily could have been 3-0 up.
Yeah.
Right? If those two shots from Maguire and James went in. And I thought overall, it was really disappointing, the ending to it. But I don't think we should read too much into it as a whole, just because, like I said, we could have won that 3-0. But what we do need to read a bit into, once again, is starting games quite slowly is an issue. And we simply have to work on set pieces in training. Like, that just needs to happen now because it's getting ridiculous.
With Robbie, how about you? How did you see Thursday night?
So obviously I was hosting the review, and Alexi come on and we had it all set up, the thumbnail, the banner, and it was like 1-0 United. And I was like, this is just typical, like my TV's above me and I'm sitting watching it, and I was so angry. Whenever the game ended, it was as if like straight back to reality. And to be honest, AC Milan did deserve something out of the game, and I mean, we should really have bet them 3-0. 3-4-0. They had half a team. All their stars were out, really. And they got a goal away from home. And now, surely, they'll take this into the next game and think, you know what? We're at home. Possibly Zlatan will be back as well. He seems to be fighting for fitness. And you're like, if he's back, you know what he can do. We've seen him do it for United for over a year. We've seen him do it all over the world, all over Europe, and I just can't be bothered losing again, getting dumped out early on. But yeah, we need to focus on West Ham ahead. This game is more important for me. But yeah, I mean, obviously we've got a bit of a striker issue just now. And before we move on, actually, I'd quite like to just talk about the fact, like, do you guys think that we should be playing, like Martial, Rashford, in Europa League, or do you think we should be, holding them off and playing them in the Premier League and letting them rest midweek on the Thursday? Because, a Thursday night is a lot worse than playing it. See, on a Tuesday or a Wednesday, I would say.
Alexi, I want to hear from you first before I give you my thoughts.
Yeah. The problem is I see where you're coming from completely, because in previous years, when Jose Mourinho was there, or even when Van Gaal was there, we used to get fairly straightforward Europa League draws, and it would mean that we were afforded the ability to rest players, like the top players. But the problem we've had this season is there's been no respite at all, because the cup draws have all been so heavy and so difficult. And like the Champions League draw was really difficult. And then you're going to the Europa League, And the problem is, I think you can't really rest them, even though they need the rest, because we're in the Europa League, but the last 2 teams we've played have been Champions League level teams. Plus, you know, with the way the season's kind of going a bit, it kind of seems a bit more important to put a bit more into the cups. But I do think they need to be rested, and well, they're both injured now, so it shows they needed to be. But it's just the luck of the draw, unfortunately. If we had the luck that Tottenham, for example, have had with their draws, we easily could have rested both of them, I think.
You know what? I always think that because, like, see, Spurs, they have had the easiest draws.
Yeah.
And
in all the competitions.
And they're still playing so bad. You know, obviously they played well in the Europa League on Thursday night, but it's been so bad. And they've got the ability to rest their players, possibly rest Harry Kane, who, you know, gets their goals and gets them wins. And it's almost as if they're not taking advantage of it, which is crazy because, you know, Jose Mourinho, whenever he was our manager, and we actually aimed on Europa League, and we almost used the Premier League to rest our players because the Champions League top 4 fight was kind of off the table, you know, and he prioritised that, but you don't really see what he could be prioritising at the moment, and I think that's the same for Ole. I don't know what he is prioritising, and myself and Official Pundit, we did talk about this for quite an extended amount of time, and he asked me quite a lot of questions on it, and you need to look at it and think, what's your aims for this season? Like, I think what other teams you can see, you know, Man City want the Premier League, and now they can almost take a step back, take players off in the 60th minute because they can get the game done, rest them for the Champions League on a Tuesday, Wednesday night, you know, and then you can look at Chelsea as well. They're clearly aiming for top 4. But us, what's the plan? Are we trying to win the Europa League? Are we trying to win the Premier League? Or are we just trying to get any sort of silverware, even in the FA Cup? I honestly don't know.
It's a strange situation, but to answer Alexi's question in regards to giving our first team players time in the Europa League, I done said it from the start of the season, no matter what competition we're in, we're aiming to win it. And we do it while we try. And if we don't try, then it proves that in the end, fans will use that as an excuse to, start the agenda that Ollie's not taking competition seriously. Last season was an anomaly in that we did have just one competition and the FA Cup to focus on at that time. And we got far in the Premier League, finishing in the top 4, semi-finals of the FA Cup, albeit a horrible manner to just give up on it in the way that we did, knowing that we needed to sacrifice one to be able to get the other. And then when the Europa League comes around, it's a standalone event 2 weeks after we finish in the Premier League. And that's like, you got like how much rest between that 2 weeks? We stressed them out. They were already tired then, but this is Ollie saying we needed to go for it. We went for it and came up short that night against Sevilla. So this year, it's a whole different situation. We're still playing best part of 3-4 fixtures a week sometimes, or in 10 days, in fact. And you're kind of now weighing up whether it's right to play these first teamers or not against the likes of Milan also. I take what Alexis says into consideration as well, is that the draws we had last season are a lot worse this season than they were then. Last year, in the knockout phases of the Europa League, we had Club Brugge, LASK, and Copenhagen. And then the first team we met in the semi-finals was Sevilla. And it was the only serious team we met in that stage to get into the final. I think we should have beaten them. However, on the night, what happened. And you tend to just let it be, move on to the next season. But in Mourinho's season, when we won the Europa League, we also had a relatively simple run where in the last 32 was Saint-Etienne, Rostov in the last 16, and Anderlecht in the quarterfinal.
Yeah.
And then the first serious team, or sort of serious team we met in the semis were Celta Vigo, and managed only just to get through that. So then the first big team we meet is in the final against Ajax. Okay, Mourinho's path to the final, a little bit easier maybe than what Oli got to being to the semi-final. The difference being Sevilla love the tournament, they take it a lot more seriously than anyone else would if given the opportunity. They will go out to win it no matter what. It just seems unfathomable, though, right now, that fans are still thinking we should give up trying to win a trophy this season just so that we can secure top 4. I mean, what? Chelsea drew today. We're still 3 points clear of them. And a win tomorrow puts us 7 points clear. I know it's a long shot with who's out, but I still think it's a big step forward in trying to secure our position in the top 4. So I'd like us to win every match between now and the end of the season, but it's near impossible, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like, for me though, whenever you're saying, I made back to your point a while ago, where the fans will go at Ole out for that and say, oh, it's his fault if he kind of almost backs out of a tournament, lets his young players play. I would not blame that on Ole. I would blame that higher up. Glazers, the board, I mean, we all knew that Ole needed players. He got rid of a lot of deadwood, which everyone was so happy about. But then you need to look at it and think, oh, well, what's happened on the other end? Because Ed Woodward didn't do enough to bring in players, didn't do enough to bring in rotational players. They would have some sort of value to the team. And that does bring us to this point where we probably do need to try and push ourselves away from certain tournaments. I don't know what, because as I said, Ole looks as if he seems to try and be going for every single one of them, which I think will really backfire on him, and we'll see a lot of fatigue issues, kind of just injury, kind of raw injuries. I think players like Aaron Wan-Bissaka will be struggling, who basically plays. I mean, I always use this kind of point of reference, and it's he played 90 minutes against Luton Town, which is just easily avoided.
Crazy.
Or is that fear? Is that fear from Ole about losing the game, or is that literally down to the fact we have no rotation whatsoever? I don't know. I think it's crazy for us to sit here and try and. I think it's crazy for us to sit here and try and break that down, because at the end of the day, it's down to the manager. If he is nervous about playing some of these young people, these young players who are really succeeding in youth setup, then surely they're not ready. Surely they maybe need another year, a loan move. I don't know. I feel as if it's kind of down to the man himself.
But when you think about it, though, if we're comparing with even Tottenham or the obvious one, Manchester City, is that I make this point so many times, I think, but it's like they can rest Sterling and bring in Mahrez. They can rotate Jesus, Aguero. I mean, they've even got Gundogan up there now. And even Spurs, you're looking at, and you've got players like Bergwijn, Lucas, Bale, Son. It's Kane. They've got a backup striker as well. They've got quite a wide range of players to call upon. But our problem is we have about probably 14 players that, if that group of players is in the first team, we don't bat an eyelid. And then it's suddenly, there's players that there is a clear step down in, and that's a big issue. Prime example, there's not a second right back. The depth at centre back is non-existent really at this point. I mean, there's 3 centre backs.
We have no one. We actually have no one.
There's no one because, we haven't got enough centre backs. But then you notice, in terms of Ole's rotation in general, I think it needs to be better. But when he gets the chance to rotate some of the players, I think he does, and we see that from Alex Telles coming in for Luke Shaw, because we have options in that position. And then we kind of see it a bit with, Henderson used to come in for De Gea because we had options. And I think you're right in saying he does need to rotate more, because we've seen the after effects of this on players like Rashford is the prime example of it. But I think he wants to, but unfortunately we just don't have enough depth for him to do it.
The squad is threadbare at best, and can be at a point down to the bare bones, but it has a sense of deja vu to last season, this particular situation. We had literally no strikers. I think we had Rashford out with the back injury at that time. We had, I think, Martial at this time before the lockdown started. He was not particularly fit, or he was still scoring goals. It was his best season at United to date at the time, and he went on to prove that towards the end. But in that period where we had to rely on Odio and Igalo to come in and play up front, for that small period of time, you just felt like, okay, there's the bit of help up front now, even if it is just a short-term fix for a long-term problem. You still have someone up front. Now, Cavani's coming this year, and while he is a very good option to have up front in the app with, Martial's consistency in terms of form being, a little bit shaky, you then ask yourself the question, could Cavani step up? At points he has this season, but now he's not only injured, he's contemplating a move to Boca Juniors. So then that makes our depth problems even worse in terms of next season. But when we talk about right now, he's not available to us. Neither is, if what is said to be, what is believed to be is true, if Martial's not able to play tomorrow, we are, to start, I think probably the youngest front three we've started in a long time, with Greenwood at 18 up front, Diallo on the right at 18 as well, and then you have Daniel Jones, he's 23, but still modestly young. It's a potential. There's the potential to perform, but whether it can is a whole different matter altogether. So it does pose, again, goes back to the point, do we go out again and look for another striker? I say if we are, I would rather it be an affordable option that does back up Martial if he is to stay. If he is to go, then go and get the next big thing if you want to, because that would make a whole lot of sense there and then. But in terms of for now, the next 3 games, it's a hard one because we are playing 3 difficult matches. West Ham tomorrow. It's a game on its own. We've seen this season, with this sort of like not strongest team, our second best team, to say the least, in the FA Cup, we struggled against them. We really didn't create many chances, and it seemed that for a long time we wouldn't be able to score. And eventually, it took us until the 97th minute when we brought on a few first teamers to kill the game. So, if we see that sort of team again tomorrow, I think we'll have a difficult game. Not that I don't trust the players on the pitch to not perform. I just think we will struggle a little bit more up front tomorrow, knowing that we will be relying on Mason a lot more to help us in the box. And for Diallo in his first Premier League game, which he starts, strangely enough, to perform miracles like he did on Thursday for the best part of 45 minutes. It's a stretch, to say the least, I think. But we've covered the strikers matter. Let's now talk about the opposition. And it's a very interesting topic we're going to cover here, because on this show, we've kind of lambasted David Moyes when he was United's manager. And obviously we have very, unhappy memories of his time at the club. Particularly, and none more so evident, was the way he got acrimoniously sacked. And we remember that more than anything. The day we went to Everton, I think we lost 3-0 and we were in 7th place in the league. Not a chance of getting into either European competition. More importantly, at the time, being the defending champions as well, to have dipped so much was outrageous. But he did have problems. He did have an aging team, which was one problem. He didn't have a lot of he didn't get a lot of help in the transfer market. He was forced to sign players in the last minute of the deadline day, paying over the odds for Marouane Fellaini, getting rejected to Fabio Coentrão's services at Old Trafford. It was the most ludicrous time at United. So when he gets sacked, he goes away for a while and does jobs at Sunderland, in Spain, and all that. And his first spell at West Ham didn't go very well. Now, he returns to West Ham midway through last season, and having learned his mistakes from being there the first time around, he's built a team now with a bit of help financially to be able to perform and gain consistent results in matches normally they would be seen to struggle against and languish much lower in the league. Tonight, they're currently 5th place and 3 points outside the top 4. So while it is important for us to get a result tomorrow, if West Ham win, that gives them a lot of hope of now forcing Chelsea to respond after they picked up a draw today. So talking about West Ham a little bit, how, gentlemen, have you seen the recovery in terms of not only David Moyes' career at West Ham, but also how West Ham have played this season into a position that I don't think many of us would have expected him to be in?
Yeah, so I think that, West Ham, their midfield is looking amazing this year, especially whenever Jesse Lingard come in. Obviously, we know he's not playing tomorrow against us because he's, I'm pretty sure that happens with every loan in the Premier League. Yeah, they can't play. But you look deeper, further back, and Thomas Souček and Declan Rice. They're probably the best pivot in the league, hands down. They would get any team in the league. If we can get Jesse Lingard offloaded to West Ham and then possibly bring in either Souček or Declan Rice. Personally, I would rather have Souček. I think he's much more like your kind of modern midfielder where he can get in the box, win a header, and just do the kind of nitty-gritty type things, which we are missing at the moment. We've obviously got McTominay and Fred, but I'd much rather have Declan Rice and Souček. They're very agile for big guys. They'll definitely cause us issues. I don't think it's a game for Nemanja Matic as well. I feel as if he will get absolutely burned against these two guys because they're just energy. So we need guys on the park like that. And then obviously Benrahma came from Brentford, as we all know. We knew what he can do in the Championship, but he's came into the Premier League and he looks the part. I don't think he's actually put up the best numbers possible, but whenever you look deeper and you actually watch them play, you watch David Moyes' philosophy, he definitely gets involved, definitely earns his start in the starting 11.
Yeah, they've been really impressive. And I think what's impressive about David Moyes' management is I'm just looking at some of the players here. You've got Aaron Cresswell and Craig Dawson, for example. Craig Dawson hasn't been thought to be much of a player, really. He's just kind of a journeyman in previous years, just going between clubs. He's playing really well for David Moyes. Aaron Cresswell, who, he's always been a good player. He's playing really well. And then he's not only got the kind of players who you think would be a bit average playing well, he's also got players like Benrahma, Lingard and Antonio, who were good players, but he's taken them to the next level. Antonio is a really, really good player. I really like him. And Benrahma as well. And I think the good thing about West Ham in the last few years is before the last couple of years, they used to make the most erratic signings. They used to be chaotic. A couple of years ago, you had Zabaleta coming in. You had Wilshere coming in. You had, even Evra. I love him, but he was past it at that point. Joe Hart coming in. And in the summer, they made really astute signings. Like Lingard, obviously in the January, was a really astute signing. Benrahma is a really astute signing as well, because he was one of the best players in the Championship last season, probably after Ollie Watkins. And they're buying well. Antonio came from the Championship for quite cheap as well. And Bowen as well came from the Championship for cheap. And it feels like West Ham, for years they've talked about the so-called West Ham way, and no one really seemed to know what that meant. It was just a thing their fans said. But they do seem run quite well now. I know they have issues with their ownership, but in terms of the structure of the transfers and how the manager is getting the best out of the team in general, they look like a really good side. And I think David Moyes, we do ridicule him a bit, but I'm really happy for him. He's having his little redemption arc now.
Yeah, I feel as if as well, I forgot to say this, and I went to Prague last year, and Thomas Souček was literally their best player. Slavia Prague, Sparta Prague, huge derby. They live for the football. They live for both those teams. And Thomas Souček was the captain. And he wasn't really sought after, off any of the European giants. Now he is, definitely. But I feel as if those two guys, Vladimir Kufal the right back, who is very, very underrated. He literally never puts a foot wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, whenever they signed both those guys from Slavia Prague, who were obviously in the Champions League, obviously do great in the Czech Republic division as well. It was a very random signing, but I mean, that obviously shows you that they do recruit the right players. As you said, Alexi guys from the Championship as well, which is always a risk. It's a huge step up against obviously the best teams in England. And yeah, you literally can't write them off because they haven't put a step wrong this season, especially whenever they've come up against teams like Man City, Liverpool, United. There's a lot of teams up there that you'd be expecting to absolutely batter a team like West Ham, and they're really still in top 4 race, which is very interesting because I would never ever have expected that this year.
No, absolutely not. I tipped them, to be honest with you, in mid-table. I think around when I made my prediction back in September, to be in around the 11th and 12th, particularly after last season. But understandably, that was because Pellegrini had been in charge a large amount of the time during that year, and David Moyes didn't have a lot of preparation time with the team. I think for him, though, the lockdown became an important time for him to learn the strengths of the side and be able to adapt them to his advantage. And sure enough, their finish to the season was really, really good. I've now carried that on into this season. And the fact now they've run 14 games and have a 2-game advantage, obviously, before they play us tomorrow. But they still have 2 games in hand on Chelsea, being 3 points off the top 4. No matter what European competition they go into next season, they stand a good chance of being in Europe next season, no matter which one it is. If it's the Champions League, then hi-ho, that's a magnificent achievement and will really rattle the cages of some teams below them in the league, the likes of the Liverpools, the Arsenals and the Spurs, who would have not expected a team of West Ham's calibre to have leapfrogged all of them into the top 4 this season. And it will hurt them, absolutely. So they will be keen, obviously, not to allow that to happen. But it's not just down to us, but it also relies on the fact that they have also been so good in front of goal. And yeah, okay, they lost to Man City 2-1 the week before. But look at that performance in a deeper scale. It was energetic for us. They were hard-working. They gave City a hard time. When they equalised, they didn't stop harassing City. It took them to score a header. I think that's Ruben Diaz's header won the game that night. I think that was the only main moment from that match where they let their concentration just dip a little bit and allow City to really control the game from then onwards. But they put in a commanding performance in stages, and that I fear tomorrow is the attitude I think David Moyes will want from that team. And there's a lot of fans, not only on the social media field, but that I watch or get a vibe from on the internet, that feel like they are really going somewhere this season with this team and this manager, and that they don't want it to be an Ajax-style breakup where 1, 2, 3 team or players get plucked out from the system, and suddenly you're now having to go out and source the sort of talents that the Součeks, the Koufals, and co tend to offer when you go out into the Czech market or even into those lesser known leagues that are hard to find such great players for. So I think tomorrow, in terms of tomorrow in general, Souček, Rice will be a hard battle in midfield. It's probably why we will have to play McTominay and Fred. And, we are still have reservations on McTominay's partner, not so much McTominay. Didn't play very well on Thursday nights, but Fred hasn't played all that great recently. So I'm hoping an improved performance from him will hopefully be good for his confidence ahead of Thursday. He will probably start on Thursday. The other thing I wanted to shout out was, and he's a bit underrated, he brought up Aaron Cresswell, Robbie. He's 31, and I'm shocked that he's not been considered for the England team, because not only does he do a great job in the set-piece division of the game, but he also does incredibly well as a third centre back. This season, he's played at left centre back, a bit like Luke Shaw has for United. For West Ham, he's played as a third centre back and has just been very disciplined and incredibly calm and controlled, learning off of Craig Dawson and helping Issa Diop. He's still quite young, but still very mobile and pacey as a centre half. But they work well as a unit and they have strengths to their game, which they can each help each other in developing. I think he's very well underrated in that aspect. And when he scored against us last season, and I was there to see it that day, wasn't a nice feeling, but he deserved it for the performance he put in that afternoon, where he'd been knocking balls in all day for Yarmolenko and Antonio and co, and giving Maguire and Lindelof a hard time. So we learned a lot from that game. I think Ollie took some notes and thought, this is how probably more or less setting up. So I wanted to cater to that. And we went on, I think from then on was a struggle and a 1-1 draw at Old Trafford post-restart. A key focus, as you may have mentioned, Robbie, was Thomas Souček. He's the main threat. Scored in the first game this season at West Ham. When we went there, I think it was in front of fans as well. It was in front of fans. It was 2,000 there that evening. But he scored the opening goal. He's the obvious threat as well is set pieces. Can we just very quickly touch on that? Because we've got to talk about Jesse Lingard shortly. Very quickly touch on it. Obviously, we could see the last-minute corner on Thursday night. Yet again this season, it's another set piece we have not defended well, and it's led to either dropping points or conceding crucial away goals. So, do you feel this is an organisation matter, or is in terms of preparing this team to set up for corners correctly defensively, or is it just lapses in concentration that benefit the opposition? Just very quickly on this topic.
It's both, probably, isn't it? I think they can't be. They need to work on it more, 100%. And especially if, like you said, we're playing Souček tomorrow, they have to work on it. But I think it's also a combination of they need to train on it better, and also, players are making mistakes from set pieces that they just shouldn't be making. And it's not just one player; it's all of them. It's from the point of where against Everton, about 5 players could have headed it out, and they just didn't. The line wasn't there, wasn't going on properly. Henderson and De Gea have struggled a bit from set pieces. It seems to be a systemic thing, and it really needs sorting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's almost like it's going to happen against West Ham because they've got Rice, they've got Souček, Craig Dawson, who's really good in the box as well. Mm-hmm. And they've obviously got Cresswell from the set pieces. And you can't help but worry. You've even got Mikel Antonio, and I feel as if it's definitely a game for Eric Bailly. Yes, he was on the park on the AC Milan game, but he'll just provide so much more in a physical game like what it will be tomorrow, which, to be honest, I'm not excited for the game because it will be a close game. I am pretty sure about that one. But we just need to stop balls coming in the box because we'll suffer, especially with Thomas Souček going box to box. He's got the energy, he's got the kind of versatility in his game where he can do box to box, win headers, score goals. He's everywhere. And then obviously Declan Rice will be in the act as well.
Mm-hmm. It's funny you brought up the 2 Czech internationals. I think what you mentioned the Prague derby. I was there on a media duty in 2019, the night they played Chelsea, an incredible game, 4-3. And they both played, they were very good. I credit where credit's due. They played very good, both of them. But that night was a great game, and I haven't forgotten since when they went on to knock out Sevilla. I think knocked out Sevilla before they met Chelsea. I never forgot after that how good they were that night. So him and Gufal connected brilliantly. I think one of the goals they scored from outside the box was one of Souček's passes out wide, and it drilled into the centre to the edge, to someone who was on the edge of the box, and he just smashed it into the net.
Yeah,
I remember it was a brilliant goal.
That's the thing, though, Ahmed. Like, Thomas Souček's got way more to his game than most midfielders in the league because he's obviously very tall. I'm sure he's 6'3", 6'4",
mm-hmm.
and he's also very agile. He gets about, starts attacks. As I said, he goes box to box, which is, I can't name another player who could do that apart from Marouane Fellaini whenever he played for Everton. There really isn't anyone else.
Yeah,
and that must be a thing. That must be a thing where David Moyes can manage to get the best out of these type of guys. because Marouane Fellaini, at that time, there was no better midfielder in the league. He was just levels above most other midfielders.
Absolutely. And I valued obviously Fellaini's time here. Obviously, he wasn't everyone's cup of tea, but he played a part, and I think Moyes is developing that sort of role with Koufal and not so much Koufal, but with Soucek today. And he'll be a big threat to us. I think we can all agree, man to watch. Thomas Soucek. Just don't let him be free at the corners. Another quick topic. I know we've tried our best to cover as much as we can on the show, but we are stressed for time, and there's a lot of things that are going on. Particularly, got to keep an eye on Man City, who are playing Fulham shortly. But let's talk about Jesse Lingard. Obviously, this season hasn't been his season. It's been a tricky time for him, being less in the kindest way possible, being pushed out of the way because of the emergence and the form of Bruno Fernandes, Donny van der Beek's arrival to the club. And although Van der Beek hasn't played particularly well, or hasn't appeared in the team enough as either, you still think he will still play a part when fit. So you're then looking at Lingard and asking him, if you can't provide this for us, can you move on to another club for now? Try and develop that form again. If you play well enough, maybe we'll come back to you later and ask you to play that position if we need you, badly need you. So he's gone away, and since then has become a revelation for West Ham United. And suddenly he looks like the player he was in that 2018 season when we were second in the league. Scoring goals, bursting into the box, high energy, ball at his feet, really confident with the ball at his feet, scoring. Like, he's setting up goals, not only scoring them. And do you feel, though, is it the right time for him to progress on his career and move on from United, or do you still see something in him at Old Trafford?
I think Jesse Lingard, I love Jesse Lingard. I'd love it if he came back and did well. But I think for his sake, it is just time for him to move on. He needs to detach himself from everything that's gone on at Man United. He's obviously been great for us, but if he came back into the team, in the summer, he's not getting in ahead of Bruno Fernandes. He's not getting in ahead of Marcus Rashford. That's just the reality of it. But I think what we've seen is, many had written him off as a player completely. And I think players like Dele Alli should actually take a leaf out of Lingard's book, because Ali is going through a similar struggle. And Lingard's gone to, I know they're doing well this season, but they are obviously a smaller team than us. And he's really thrived, and he thrived right from the off. And it just shows sometimes in football, it's just a bit of confidence, just a bit of an arm around your shoulder, and just being given that chance. And he's thriving. And it is interesting. It's under David Moyes as well. But I noticed, I think you two probably would have seen it as well. After, I think, when they beat Villa at the end, like Stuart Pearce was hugging him, Kevin Nolan was hugging him, Moyes was hugging him, Antonio Rice. You can tell that week before his first game, they all really wanted him to do well, and they all really helping him. And I think he's in a brilliant environment, and I think he should stay there, because he could get back to being a top player again. And obviously that's what we want for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I need to agree about that. The fact that Jesse Lingard probably won't get into the United team or anywhere about, even the bench at the moment. Probably, I mean, if he's on form, then yes, but he looks as if he's a type of guy who needs a run of games. He needs a lot of support, a lot of love from the fans, which he won't get here. And I mean, you also need to remember we could use that to our advantage by giving West Ham Jesse Lingard. As we've said, we need a defensive midfielder. We could either Thomas Soucek possibly, drop the price for that. I know we'd obviously probably need to spend money still on Soucek or Declan Rice, but I think it could definitely be an option, because I've not heard anyone else. Chelsea, no, not anymore for Declan Rice. So I think we've got a kind of open run for these two guys, and I would love us to sign one of them. And I wish Jesse Lingard the best of luck, because I do like him, and I've got great memories of Jesse Lingard, as we all do. But yeah, I think it's time to move on for Jesse Lingard.
Yeah, I mean, when you mentioned memories, obviously the FA Cup final springs to mind. He performed brilliantly in Stockholm in the Europa League final. The performance against Chelsea comes to mind as well. He's also scored many key goals and played in that, as I mentioned, the 2018 season in the Premier League, where we finished second, but he scored so many goals. And not only that, he played such a huge role in the entire system of the team. Obviously, not popular with Mourinho in the end, but ultimately, what we're losing here, if he does decide to stay, we are losing a player who committed and gave his all for the club. And I think he'll still love us no matter what. He'll still love us long after he leaves United. But like you guys, and I'm agreeing here with you, is that the best thing we can do, and as fans, let alone people who give a damn about United, is that for someone who has given up so much, I think this is the right time for him to advance his career and make it happen with West Ham. They're benefiting greatly from him. They're giving him the love he didn't seem to be getting under Solskjaer. And you can kind of understand Solskjaer's brutal approach here a little bit. So he said to him, I'm going to give you a chance or two, but if you don't take them, I can't consider you for the first team at any point, because you get these opportunities against these smaller sides or in the Europa League. You must produce. If you can't do it, you can't play. And I think Ollie saw just a little too, didn't see enough from him. I think Watford was the last game he played, and he just did not see enough from him in that FA Cup tie to convince him to say, okay, I can use him in the Europa League, for example, or I could make the most of his abilities in games against the lower ranked teams. So, yeah, ultimately now's the right time to suggest in moving on. So we were talking about our striker problem. Now we have to talk about who plays, because we are in a crisis. Let's not be around the bush here. We are 3 games away from the international break. It looks odds on we won't have Marcus Rashford for a little while. We're hoping at best if he's okay for Thursday, then he goes to England. Now, I'm hoping, a bit selfish part of me thinks back to when the last international break took place. He had a shoulder injury and pulled out of the England squad. It benefited us because he went on to play very well in that little period afterwards. Okay, we went out of the Champions League and all that, but he still played well. Scored against PSG, had scored a fair few goals in that Christmas period as we progressed up the league into first position. But ultimately, I think if he pulls out of the England squad, good. Just rest him. At the end of the day, they're World Cup qualifiers against sort of lower ranked teams, all of them. So I would be shocked if England don't beat them without Marcus Rashford. So Rashford's one. Van der Beek's not fit. I doubt he'll go with Holland. So he needs to rebuild his fitness. No matter what it is, whatever injury it is, just get him recovered over that quickly. And thirdly, Martial is his impact injury. So unless he's massaged it out or they found a way to just stifle the pain so he can play, it would be ideal him playing in this match, because we do need that focal point up front. Let Greenwood do what he needs to do on the right. Harsh on Ahmad, yes, because he did score on Thursday and looked so good. But if Martial's fit, he plays. Greenwood moves on to the right. If he isn't fit, you put Greenwood up front, put Ahmad on the right-hand side. So those are a couple of our teething problems. Obviously, Pogba's is the issues we faced many a time with Paul Pogba. He gets one small injury, suddenly he feels like he's out forever. So that's a problem. So now I want to hear from you guys, with what we have left in our hands, albeit very small in quantity and quality. Who should you pick tomorrow afternoon? I'll start with Robbie.
Yes, I'll go with Dean Henderson in goals. Obviously made the mistake, but I think that he is still in a quarantine period because he came from Spain. So, yeah, he won't be playing. Left back to Luke Shaw. He's probably been the best left back in the league. One of our player of the year.
Roberto Carlos. What's her name? What's her name?
Definitely one of our contenders. Centre backs, Harry Maguire's always going to be a lock-in. You know, we spent 80 million on him. I don't mind Harry Maguire. I know a lot of people do, but he's always going to be a lock-in. It's always about the guy next to him. And for me, tomorrow's game, because it'll be a physical, pretty tall, game, Eric Bailly because he will be up against Mikel Antonio, and we don't want Lingard, and we don't want Lindelof to get shrugged off the ball and back to headers, because you know what that will lead to. And then obviously at right back, Wan-Bissaka, there's not really any debate because we don't have another right back. And I think we'll go with Diamond tomorrow. I think possibly Matic might need to start, because I think he would rather start with someone like that over Ahmad, because again, he's very young. He needs to be kind of nurtured into the team. And I think we'll go possibly with Matic. I know that did kind of say Matic shouldn't start, but if we play with Matic, McTominay and Fred, yes, it's not as attacking as we would like, but we don't really have any other options, do we? We've got, as you said, Van der Beek out, Martial, Rashford. We've got Cavani out as well. We can't even really go with an out-and-out striker, so it'll have to be, I'd say, those three guys with Bruno Fernandes in front of them. And then, I mean, I don't really want this to happen, but it's going to need to. I think it will be Dan James and Mason Greenwood up front, because we've seen Dan James do it in the past. He's not been amazing in that position, but we obviously know he can play there. If worst comes to worst, and that is what I'm saying. I would rather him obviously out wide. I'd prefer him on the left over the right anyway, but I think he'll play down the middle alongside Mason Greenwood, who it's going to be a struggle getting goals, especially if you're relying on an 18-year-old and a rotational right winger to play up front.
Just one question regarding that. I'm thinking now, so your idea is to set up in a diamond. West Ham thrive in wide areas. So if we play narrow tomorrow, West Ham would be greatly happy to get the ball out wide to anyone who's playing right back, to Kufar or whoever plays left back if Crosswell doesn't play there. Whoever plays left back or right back, there is free reign for them to use the wide areas at will and whip the ball in. Are you content in that case with playing narrow?
What I get from whenever we play narrow is, as you say, we've not got a lot of width, obviously, and everyone's kind of covering the centre almost, like your Rashford, Martials, who aren't going to chase. But whenever you get, let's say, Dan James, Mason Greenwood, full of energy, they'll break out wide. They'll try and help out, and also McTominay and Fred. They're pretty mobile. That is one thing I need to say about them, and almost kind of like about them, because they're mobile. They'll get out. They'll help. And that was literally one of my main reasons why I wouldn't have played Matic. But if Matic is going to be sitting just in front of the defence, almost kind of dictating the play, then I don't think there'll be any issues. But they'd say if Matic was in the midfield, I think we would have several issues, because he couldn't, break out wide and help out the wing backs. But yeah, I think we'll be okay in that sense, because we'll get the width due to just sheer kind of work rate from that team.
Okay, fair. That's a fair point, and I contested that just to make sure that you had covered the idea that they're obviously playing now, and there's a big risk of putting the ball out wide for the opposition, leaving all that acres of space for them to utilize that. Yeah. Covering the centre, it has its benefits, but I'm a cynic to it, because I worry that if you do leave wide spaces open up for anyone, whether it be a wing back or a right or a winger in general, that they are free reign to just attack that space and use it to whip balls into anyone in the box. And if a defense is sleeping, as we tend to sometimes, that can be a detriment. But there is a fair balance point to that, and I feel like you have taken that into consideration. So credit where credit's due, Robbie. I hope if he does go with a diamond tomorrow, I think it will cut. It may have a tricky time, but it will hopefully come off. Alexi, your 11?
Yeah, so I had an 11 in my head, but I've just had an idea, right? So the idea is we put Alex Telles on the left wing.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I think this is a possibility is, am I right in saying that Telles and Shaw were on the pitch at the same time?
Yes, they were against Milan.
So what I think could happen here is Henderson in goal. I think Wan-Bissaka, Maguire, and I think it will be Lindelof because Bailly played, but I would prefer to see Bailly. and then I think we'll see Shaw at left back, and then I think we'll probably see McTominay and Fred and Bruno, and then I'd have personally probably. So I'd have Telles on the left. This sounds like a crazy idea. This probably won't happen, but Telles on the left wing, Greenwood up front, and then it's either Diallo or James. See, I want to start Diallo.
Alexei, come on. It's like FIFA. That sounds like FIFA. Alex Telles, like, I mean, he is good going forward, you know, but
he has played on the left midfield position before for Porto when dire straits have happened. And because he can, you know, I know he's a left back trade by trade, but what that allows us to do, and I can see the logic to Alexei's approach, is it doesn't, while he lacks a lot of pace, he's not the fastest player, he certainly makes up for that in technical ability, playing the ball and keeping it close to his feet and getting a great cross into the box. Particularly, he can also allow, if we do go into a defensive position, Shaw can go back into a 3 and it will become a 5-back formation when we are not in possession. It does look a little tricky, like a little weird, but it makes a lot of sense. We've tried it before against Liverpool and against City in the past. It seems to have worked on those particular occasions. But I can see the logic there, Alexei, with that one. Continue. Go ahead with your 11.
Yeah. So I just think it would make sense because while I think it would be quite exciting maybe to see James, Greenwood and Diallo, I do just worry that throwing Diallo and James in at the same time, you know, it puts a lot of pressure on both of them. And I think it's maybe better to play one of them rather than both. But yeah, I just think, and obviously Greenwood's going to be the number 9. But I mean, I guess, you know, you could easily play Diallo. I mean, I tweeted this earlier. I just think something important with Diallo, I don't want to see, you know, so he has some good games and then he has one bad game and then suddenly the fan base turn on him. I really don't want to see that. We need to support this kid because he's an 18-year-old kid who really shouldn't be pushed into the first 11 of Manchester United yet, but it looks like he's going to have to be. And we all need to support him because I don't want to see what happened with Dan James last year, because Dan James was not meant to be a starting player, but everyone got injured and Dan James became a starting player because, like you mentioned earlier, Ahmed, there was so many injuries last year. What happened then is Dan James, you know, he wasn't great at times, I've got to admit this, but he just got so much flack and it obviously affected him and we've not seen him really recover till now. So I just think it's really important with Diallo that we just, you know, nurture him a bit and, you know, we get behind him, basically. I know it sounds like a really simplistic point, the idea of getting behind someone and the impact it might have, but the kid's 18, you know, and I guess the same goes for Mason because, Mason hasn't been brilliant this season, but, you know, he's 19 years old. Like, he's going to have little dips. And do you know what? I think him playing through the middle tomorrow is a big opportunity for him, especially with, you know, Martial overall's not been great. Cavani is just never there anymore. I don't know where he's gone. So Greenwood could, you know, lay down a marker to play through the middle with his fellow partner Alex Telles on the left.
So you're going with, if I get this right, Henderson, Wan-Bissaka, Bailly, Maguire, Luke Shaw, and then your pivot will be McTominay and Fred. You have Alex Telles playing left wing, Fernandes in the middle, and Diallo on the right, and then Greenwood in the middle. Yeah. Okay.
I think Diallo and James is kind of interchangeable, but
I mean, I just, it does probably sound great on paper, you know, but I think we actually need to think of experience. 2, I also think we need to think, what is Ole going to do? You know, and I can't see him.
But they were at the same time the other day.
Yeah. And I just can't see him playing. They say he will need to play 90 minutes probably, or 70, you know, if Diallo does play that game. And I think he just needs that extra wee bit of kind of like nurturing into the team. I think it'll do the world of good.
Yeah, I think so too, to be honest. Short and sweet for me. I I would if it was up to me, copy paste City last week, but just take out Rashford. Obviously, not out of choice, but out of necessity because of injury. So copy and paste last week's team. If Lindelof is not fit, then play Bailly. McFred pivot. Daniel James on the right, not the left. I want to try Ahmad on the left on tomorrow's game. If not, just switch them in, but in the middle. I think you can try inverted wingers. Maybe they'll penetrate in areas of the pitch where not often you see United going in. Rashford does that a lot with his runs inside on his right foot. We could try that tomorrow with Diallo and James. James can play on the left and if as a right-footed player, and Diallo plays on the right as a left-footed player. I don't know how it'd work, but if we started with how we finished on Thursday with Diallo on the right and James on the left, see how it works in the first half. If it doesn't work per se, switch them. If that still doesn't work, I don't know what next. We just have to survive. But we've got not much to work with. But now ultimately, copy and paste last week. Bailly instead of Lindelof. If Lindelof is fit, Lindelof plays because Solskjaer just prefers him, clearly. But if not, Bailly. Alex Telles, I will only ask him to come on just for one of the wingers if we do hit a problem. Yeah. And that's not like an absolute necessity for him to be there if the worst happens in terms of one of the three goes off injured or red cards or whatever. So, God forbid that doesn't happen, but I'd like to have Tellers as the experience head to call on if we're leading like we did on Thursday. Obviously, minus conceding the goal, I'd like us to have him to come on and help out. And then maybe, if Ollie feels like it, pushes Luke into the centre-back position and then brings Alex into the false left wing position where he'd be on the normal formation, but he'd play left wing back. So that's what I'm hoping for. But same formation, but just the 2-3 changes you expect for the injuries we have. So Henderson, Wan-Bissaka, Bailly, Maguire, and Luke Shaw. Lindelof, if fit, will play where Bailly plays, but I think we'll see Bailly tomorrow. McFred, as always, pivot. You have Ahmad on the right, Fernandes in the middle, and James on the left, and then Mason Greenwood up front. So, like I said, we're down to the bare bones, everybody. So we're pretty much dealing with little to nothing here. Now, ultimately, I want this to be quick because we've overrun quite a lot this evening. The result. Now, I said this already. I just must not lose this game. That's the most important thing. Winning, great. But if they don't lose, it doesn't look too bad because we still have a cushion of sorts over Chelsea. So what are your predictions for tomorrow's game? Very quickly.
Yeah, so I'll go 2-1. Bruno Fernandes penalty, as always. I like to say that. Yep. And Harry Maguire header.
He owes us one from Thursday, to be honest.
Yeah, he definitely does. Alexi, what about you?
I'm not confident, to be honest. I'm going to say 1-0, and yeah, you're right. But it's going to need to be something to do with Bruno Fernandes. So yeah, I'll say a Bruno Fernandes penalty.
I'm not one to be the pessimist, but as I said, I'm the one who said we mustn't lose this game. While winning is important, and it'd be good to keep us clearer of those outside of the top four. Ultimately, my gut feeling is I think this will be another one of those which is a score draw. So I think this is a 1-1. I think this is a 1-1. Not that I don't want United not to win. I will always hope from kickoff we will win the game. Give or take whatever. I will still expect United to win the game from the start, even if it is a depleted side. So take that as you will. But I just think West Ham are in just that good of a form right now that they will go there to try and take something from United. They did that last season when we were chasing top four. And look what happened. Other than the Pogba mistake, which was absolutely outrageous, that game we played pretty poorly. So that evening was, like I said, it's an anomaly that evening. But the mistake from Pogba forced us to come out in the second half and we equalised. So I think we'll have a similar sort of situation there. We'll have to come out a bit more if we go behind. So my funny feeling is we may concede first, but we'll get back into the game and hopefully get a point from this match, because I don't think we can win this without giving it like the full beans and all that. But we'll wait and see. Hey, we'll wait and see. That's it from us, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. We really appreciate you coming on to tonight's show. And Alexi and Robbie, as always, have been excellent guests, and it's been great to share the evening with you. In terms of the review tomorrow, it's my house again. It's my key. I take the keys to the Traffic Talk podcast, Castle once more. And we'll do the same system as we run for the last two events now. One-on-ones for 10 minutes at a time, talking about all things regarding tomorrow's game. And then we'll look ahead to Milan in midweek. I'll hold the preview flag loud, high and proud, and then the review on Thursday night after the game as well. So that's look ahead, but do join us tomorrow on YouTube straight after the game against West Ham. But if you have enjoyed it on YouTube tonight, please hit like and subscribe as well. When we get to 200 subs, we have a plan to give something away. And on Twitter, if you follow us and send us as much retweets or likes as possible, share this out. We're trying to aim for, like, what's our modest target? Are we aiming for anything big here, Robbie, on our Traffic Talk Twitter feed?
No, you know what, Ahmed, we'll just let the fans do what they think. Everything's a bonus, you know. Every like, retweet, it's a bonus.
I agree. Well, we keep our fingers crossed. We trust you all, obviously. Thanks, everyone. Take care, everybody, and we'll see you tomorrow evening. Until then, adios. Bye-bye.